I'm going to move on now to Camilla, who's sitting here on my left. So please.
Thank you. I'll be shorter. I just wanted to pick up on two key points that come out in Peter's report. One is around the fact that despite there having been early warning signs, there was no action, or action was late. The second point that I want to pick up on is the lack of focus of the more longer term interventions on the poorest 20 to 30% households. So both points that Peter touched upon in his presentation as well. With regards to the first, as Peter showed, there were FuseNet reports already back in November 2009, October 2009. Oxfam was getting field reports of migration patterns having been disturbed. People were moving earlier to places that they would normally go later in the season in search of grazing. They were all warning signs that something was going on, that we needed to take action. Despite this, there was some action taken, as Peter mentioned, but it was very small scale and very patchy. And by early March, I remember going to Dakar and discussing with NGOs, ACF, Save the Children, with ECHO, Cyprien in particular, and other UN agencies, and there was a real lack of consensus on how bad the situation was, and sort of a holding back on really going in there and thinking and taking it seriously and scaling up the small interventions that were already happening. So at that point the focus was on Niger, but there were issues already in Chad as well as in Mali. Now, I think we would have really, in the region, we would have really benefited from an IPC, an integrated food security phase classification, a system that brought together the different stakeholders, the UN, NGOs, the government, the donors, around the table with the different information, and really came to a consensus as to how bad the situation was and what kind of response was needed. That was not there. What I welcome and we welcome in Oxfam is that there is currently, and it's at its early stages, but being developed in West Africa, something called the Cadre Harmonisé Bonifié, which is a similar system. And it, for those of you who don't speak French, it means an enhanced framework for food security. Yes. Classification, cadre harmonisé, yeah, an enhanced, harmonized framework. Basically, it was very production focused, so it was very much sort of for agricultural production, so triggering, not really covering the needs and the triggers that, say, pastoralists would need. And it's since been adapted to include some of the IPC indicators to become this cadre harmonisé bonifié. Now, I think there's a lot of work still to be done, and one of the points that I want to raise here is that I think they need the SILs, who are a regional body who hold this framework, need a lot of support, and need NGOs, need donors, need backing from others to improve on this tool and to ensure that really next time we have the kind of consensus, decision making and action that at an early stage that would have been good to have in 2010. In terms of my second point, and again, I was slightly shocked. I was hoping that in the report I would have some answers, some good stories. There are good stories. The regreening the Sahel, or the agroecological practices, the investment in agroecological practices, and there's a lot of detail in the report there and examples as well of real success stories where households have increased their income because of higher crop yields, because of better soil fertility, because they've been able to harvest wood in the way that they couldn't before. And I think there's a lot of very positive stories. However, what Peter has found is that these interventions do not target that poorest 20 to 30%. And there is little there's little evidence that it's made any change to those households, so that the trickle-down effects are not documented. So one of the things that I wanted to bring up in relation to that is, how can we bring in these people who are the most vulnerable? How can we include them, ensure that they do benefit from some of the success stories in the Sahel? This alongside, say, for example, a social protection scheme such as a seasonal safety net program, and also really it's a call for investment in this group. Thanks.